Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Shootaround. I am the only host of this podcast, Rudy Saint-Claire, and joining me, as is tradition, above me is the one and only Jacob R.R. Buckets, as well as the best baseball player I know, Nicholas Hankel, aka Motown Noah. Fellas, how we doing today?
Great, we're doing good. Well, I don't know about Nick. I'm doing good. Yeah, I can't
I'm
speak
fucking
for you.
sad. Jerry West is dead.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, that is what we are covering at the top of the show today.
If you're just tuning in and you haven't heard, sorry if this is how it's being broken to you.
God.
Jerry West is dead.
I found out from a meme on Twitter.
I thought you were about to say you found out from a tweet, as if that's not how most people probably.
No,
man. Out.
Someone made a joke, and I was like, "Wait, I don't get this joke. What's happening here?"
This joke doesn't make sense. Jerry West is alive. This joke wouldn't make sense if it would only make sense if Jerry West was dead.
It wasn't very explicitly indicating his death, but I was like, "This doesn't make sense." But anyways, the way I feel about it is, if you die that old in an accomplished life, like I feel both the sadness because that person is gone, but also like, damn, what a life. Like that person lived their life about as well as you could, other than, going 1-9 in the finals or whatever. But other than that, great shit.
Dude,
shout out to Vince in the chat here. He said, "Goddamn, Jerry West and Bill Walton in a week."
I thought Bill Walton was more than a week ago, but maybe not.
Even if it's like marginal, who cares?
No, I tweeted like, we gotta two of the baddest white boys in the history of this sport went down. We gotta check on Larry.
Yeah, no, but dog, because these, you know how this goes. They come in threes. Speaking of coming in threes, Larry Bird, and I gotta say this. No, this hasn't been covered.
Speak like as in the 3-point shooter, Larry Bird. Is that the speaking of threes there?
Yes.
not Larry Bird's up next.
I mean, it's got to be Bob Cousy up next.
No, I think Larry Bird might die soon. Is what I'm saying.
I don't think we should speculate who's dying next.
Hold on. You know what I thought was weird? It just wasn't covered by anybody. The motherfucking Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers just played a series for the Eastern Conference Finals. Larry Bird wasn't anywhere. Larry Bird was nowhere for that series. Of all people, where was Larry Bird? What the fuck? And here's the thing. Here's what I could say is, well, it's hard for a dude like that to show a vested interest in either franchise because of how involved he is, and it would be such animosity from the opposite.
It feels weird.
You know what I mean?
No,
it's weird that he wasn't anywhere. So
he was in those Allstate commercials. I think it was Allstate commercials. I saw him there. He looked good in those.
Yeah, those could have been recorded 5 years ago.
Honestly, I was like, damn, I'm surprised he can move that well, because he was like walking around like a normal guy. He's like 60, 70.
He doesn't look that good at all. I would push back on what you said about him looking good. I don't think he looks good at all.
Maybe I'm just thinking he's older than he actually is. How old is Larry Bird?
While you look that up, I am gonna bring JC Flores' chat
He's
to our
67.
attention.
I think he moved for 67. And it's not just 67, it's also 67 while being 6'10". And when you're really tall, you're more likely to die quicker.
JC Flores says, "Where's AlexHoops?" We're talking about Larry Legend, but the legendary AlexHoops is on vacation, so he will not be joining us today.
He tried to make it, I promise you.
He put in his best foot forward, but alas, he did not make it. Enjoy your vacation, Alex. Shout out to the logo, though. I feel like you have the strongest feelings about Jerry West between all of us, Jacob, as someone who is apparently cutting together highlights as he died, or as you found out he died.
No, not even for a video, just for the love of the game. I just love Jerry West highlights. He just had to fucking cut the tape.
It was for a video, but that's not funny. We are working on a video that like basically goes over all of NBA champion history. And there's specifically stuff to be said about why they consistently lost. And then also like the one time that they won. So I was actually pretty extensively researching that era. On top of that, I loved Winning Time. Like Winning Time is objectively probably a 7 out of 10 show, but it's like the most perfect 7 out of 10 show for me that could exist. And the guy, I think, I can't remember the name, Jason something. He's Australian, plays him in that, and it's probably the best character in the whole show. Not that a character is an
Oh,
exact
Jason
replica
Clarke?
of Jerry West. Jason Clarke. Yeah. He's a really good actor. But yeah, Jerry West is awesome. I think what's funny is that after that show came out, he was like kind of upset with his portrayal, but the portrayal only endeared me to him more. But like, if you look at the dude's accomplishments, whether it's as a player or a GM, he was a coach briefly, but wasn't very good at that. But he is bare minimum a top 25 player of all time, even if you're like a major 60s haters. Like he's one of those dudes that you can watch and you're like, oh yeah, he'd still be fine, like in a more modern context, because he played kind of ahead of his game. It's like a scoring and playmaking point guard who was also a great perimeter defender, taller than your average point guard. Not something you really see in his time. Him and Oscar were similar in that way. But beyond what he accomplished as a player, he, as a GM, he assembled the Showtime Lakers. He, literally was the lead in that. Same goes for assembling the Kobe and Shaq Lakers. And then he played a very large part in the Warriors dynasty. So the dude has had his hand. No, he literally was the reason that the Kevin Love Klay Thompson trade did not happen, because he was a part of that front office and he was like, I will quit if you make that trade. He straight up said, I'm gone. Do not trade Klay Thompson. And look where they are now. So Jerry West, if we're not just going purely what they did on the court or purely what they did off the court, just like in totality, your contribution to the NBA as an individual, Jerry West is on that Mount Rushmore as far as I'm concerned. Like, and it's especially impressive, I think, to arguably be as great at being a GM as he was as a player, which in my experience, if you look at the track record of former great players who become GMs, I don't think it looks a good record, but he was so good at it. Yeah. So RIP to the logo.
You know, you think about Jerry West through the historical lens. You mentioned him going 1 of 9 in the NBA Finals, 1 for 9.
Yeah.
And you think about like where like sports media was at the time and how they would have covered him versus how they would cover a dude going motherfucking.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
oh, this floozy, he'll never win a ring. Like, what were they saying about that guy when he was 1 of 9? And then like, just think about how that guy would be talked about in 2024 going 1 for 9 in the finals. I mean, the way that what's LeBron at this point? 4 for 8?
4 for 9, I think.
4 for 9?
He made it 2007 and then made it 2011 through 2018.
God damn.
And then made it again. Yeah.
He's 4 and 6 in the finals.
Yeah, so 4 out of 10.
And if you ask me, that makes him a loser.
Let's not go down this road. Let's not.
Can't be the GOAT if you're a loser. Michael Jordan's 6-0.
The thing is, I think Jerry gets the pass because of the fact that the team that beat him 6 out of it also might have been 1 of 8. It's either 1 of 8 or 1 of 9. But I know he lost to the Knicks and then he lost to the Bill Russell Celtics 6 times.
I'd kill myself. What the fuck? Hell no. Hell no. 6 times?
I thought I hated Boston. I
Yeah.
I can't imagine having more resentment for a place than losing a title there 6 times. And a lot of them were like, the thing that I think is underrated about those Celtics teams is like, they weren't washing people. Like, they were consistently getting in game 6s and game 7s, and consistently those games were a matter of a couple of points. So, you know, realistically, there's a different reality where Jerry West has 5 rings.
Yeah, isn't that like a clip in winning time?
Yeah, it's a clip in winning time where he's talking to Magic, trying to give him a pep talk after a bad game. And he says, I've scored 25,100-something points in my career, but the thing that keeps me up at night is that if I had scored 10 more points in 5 different games, I would have 5 rings instead of nightmares. Kind of a bar.
Hey, I don't want to pivot this too far off the road here, but just in the spirit of like NBA stories with like television show adaptations. Have you guys checked in on Clipped at all?
No, I've seen the clips though. I've
Holy
watched
fuck,
it, but oh my god.
dog, it's bad.
Did
Oh
you
my
see
god.
did you see the quote from Lawrence Fishburne about Doc Rivers?
I didn't know if it was
No.
real or not. The quote where
Dude,
he was
it's
like,
so
I didn't know
funny.
who he was.
It's not just that he says he doesn't know who he was. He goes, luckily he's still with us.
The fuck?
I'm pretty sure Doc is no older than 60 something.
I guess he means like, as far as like an actor's
He's
perspective,
62.
it's easier to play someone alive than someone dead. Because
Yeah, I guess
like,
if you're like
talk to
hired,
them.
I guess if you're hired to be in a biopic, you're like, well, this fucker is probably dead. But damn, dude, Lawrence Fishburne, what happened to his career? Because that's a garbage gig for an actor. I thought, had a little bit higher claim.
It's
than
a
that.
good role. The writing.
No, he's
is
the
bad.
right actor. He's the right actor to play Doc Rivers. I agree. That's like the only good casting decision that I have seen.
the rest of the guys,
They don't look
silly.
anything like them. It's ridiculous.
The style, the pacing, like the entire like aesthetic of the show is just fucking wrong. It's bad. It's bad.
I saw a post from someone that was like, it's fitting that the Lakers got this, for the most part, for what it is, very well done, very well casted, well performed, well written, biopic. And then the Clippers got
a
like
Hulu
a biopic.
original.
Like it's like a CW show.
Yeah.
It makes sense given just the overall tone of those franchises and the difference between them.
A Riverdale ass basketball show. What's funny about Winning Time is we can say whatever we want about it, but like, did get canceled though. It did get canceled.
Dude, that broke my heart.
And you made a whole video about it. It broke your heart so bad. You said, I got to get this off my chest.
You did not make a video about that.
No, I sure did. It got like 40K too. I was pretty happy. I didn't think it would do that well. It was the off season. There's nothing to talk about.
Oh, okay. No, that's fair. That's great. No, it's good that you mentioned that because, for sure. If it was like the middle of December, fuck off. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. But it's specifically that the show is called Winning Time, and the last episode is them losing to the Celtics.
Right. I was just talking to my girlfriend about it because I was like, I really would love to watch that with you, but I was like, because it got canceled, I'm just not gonna do it again. But I was going to ask it technically ends on a cliffhanger, right? Even though I know we know what happens in real life, but yeah, they lose.
Dude, it's bullshit. They lose, and then there's like a 5-minute just text that explains the rest of history, like real quick in case you didn't know. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh,
this
right.
Is
because it got canceled while they were still releasing the last season, right? Yeah.
Dude, they were... I don't want to keep talking about this, but like I was...
You can wrap it up with this.
Yeah, my main gripe is HBO said the reason they canceled it. I think the reason they canceled it is because they were getting too much legal trouble from it. But they said it's because of lack of viewership. But what I tell you, every single time I logged into HBO Max, that shit was not in anything that was advertised. You had to look it up to find it, which I'm like, okay. There also were not trailers. Like I remember when the first season came out, trailer. You were getting hit with those fucking trailers nonstop. And then nothing for season 2, not promoted within the app. So they were trying to kill it. And it worked. So good job, HBO. You're really good at getting a lot better at killing good projects than actually making anything good these days. All right. R.I.P. Jerry West is the point.
R.I.P. Grizzlies legend Jerry West. Let's move on to the finals, fellas. We do have a couple of basketball games to talk about, both of which ended in the Celtics winning. I feel like game 1 was probably the least interesting of the two, like by a country mile, if you ask me.
Yeah, blowout versus close game.
Yeah, I mean, very, very classic stuff. I don't know really what the big takeaway from these two games are, other than Boston is really fucking good.
Yeah.
I think I got it. It's easy. If you do what were the headlines from the first 2 games? We're recapping the first 2 games. Okay, well, the first one was the Kristaps Porzingis game, right? And then the second game was the fucking Drew Holiday game. So if we wanted to do a little mental exercise and to get us started talking about these finals games. Okay, so we've gotten the Drew Holiday game and we've gotten the Kristaps Porzingis game. Who else are we getting a game from in this series? So, right, I think Derek White is easily him. I think Kyrie counts, but I don't think
Kyrie.
Luka, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum count as like having a game because those are
I think
the guys.
Yeah. I think we
You
get
know
a
what I mean?
PJ game. I think we could get a PJ game in there.
But do you guys agree that Kyrie does get to be in there because of the
based on how he
pre-existing
played
shit?
the first 2 games? Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
Kyrie's in there. Are we putting him on the list? Because where are people at with that? Because like you said, the first 2 games, I don't know. Are we
I don't
getting
know,
a Kyrie
man.
game?
It's not even just that Kyrie has been bad. It's that, holy shit, how do you score on those fucking guys? Like,
Yeah,
as
for
Kyrie Irving. Like, Luka's not having a problem, but Luka's not 6'2" on a good day. And he doesn't have, especially these pesky ass guards when you're trying to be like doing these dribble moves. Whereas Luka is like constantly putting his back to the basket as much as he can. But like Kyrie is all about getting separation with handle, but he's not getting any fucking separation with his handle.
So you bring up PJ Washington. You think PJ Washington could be on the list? Jacob,
He
this
had
is what I want to
17.
ask you.
Yeah. 17, not
This
bad.
is what I want to
Not
ask you
good.
about today. So let me set the stage. I'm watching game 2, and dog, I almost texted you in the middle of the game because I don't know if it was just me and I have just not noticed him doing this like more in the last few weeks. But I'm seeing a PJ Washington operating with like more agency than I've ever seen him with Dallas, is specifically in game 2, like
In like
getting
quick
more
decision making.
Yeah, and like they're just like, no, like go do something. Like go dribble for like 6 seconds and then like go do like, and I'm like, they're just like letting PJ Washington do a bunch of shit out there. So the first question is, was it like, did you see that too? That
Yeah.
Who the fuck was that? They've never let him do all that shit. Where did that come from?
I think it's the fact that Kyrie was getting cooked, and it's like, okay, literally we have Luka, and then who else? PJ's the best offensive player after Luka and Kyrie. Maybe if Jaden Hardy has a good night, but I don't think you can play him in this series. I think he literally checked in for 2 minutes in game 2. And Dante Exum ended up getting those minutes. But I think PJ is just the only guy who, he's not like an isolation guy, but he's like one of those dudes who is very effective at like catching the ball and then doing something within 3 seconds. Like whether that's, shooting it, pump fake, drive, pass, finish, whatever. He's making quick decisions with the ball. And that's much better than everybody else on the Mavericks who, when you give them the ball, they like are like a reindeer in headlights, like scared as fuck looking at the rest of the Celtics perimeter defenders. So I think that's it. Like he's the only dude, especially because also he's not getting the defense's attention the way that the guards are. So like he has more freedom than anybody else does.
I just gotta pause the ISO for a second to bring attention to the fact that you just said reindeer in headlights, like as in Santa's reindeer.
I meant deer. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that was a
reindeer are a real creature.
Right, but there's no way you meant the real reindeer.
No, I did.
But that's not the expression.
Right. No, you're completely right. Oh, okay. Grandma got ran over by a white-tailed deer, famously. Everybody knows that one.
Yeah. Mom killed grandma.
So if PJ Washington has the PJ Washington game, does that mean, after everything you just said, that things went right for Dallas or things went wrong for Boston?
In game 2?
No, I'm saying if we have a moment where like game 4 is, oh my God, that was the PJ Washington game. Will that mean that things went right for Dallas or wrong for Boston?
Is Dallas trying to do that, or is Boston conceding it? That's what you're asking.
Right.
Me.
And then it goes against them. Right.
I don't know that it would be as black and white as that. I think Boston is going to concede it, and then it's a matter of like PJ making them pay. And that's what it's been the whole playoffs, is like, PJ, Derek Jones, they've shot the ball well to this point, but teams are still like, I don't know if you can actually shoot though. So that opportunity will present itself. It's a matter of actually hitting the shots, because PJ went 1 for 5 from 3 in game 2. This is game 2, right? Yeah, it is. It went 1 for 5. Almost all of those were wide open. So it's like he's going to get the shots, but he has to make them. So for Boston, it is a win that PJ's killing you rather than Kyrie. or Luka, depending on how much he's bothered. But also, if you're Dallas, it's a win if that's no longer a thing they can concede, because once they're respecting PJ more, they have to inherently lay off of Kyrie and Luka a little bit.
You're referencing game 1's box score, by the way, right there.
Oh,
this
was
is
I?
game 2. Yes.
Yeah, he went 1 for 5 from 3.
Yeah.
In general, non-Luka Mavs shooting 10% from 3 in the first 2 games.
Jesus Christ. Luka's
Yeah.
been absolutely carrying them to these losses.
Oh, I don't know. Apparently, the couple of blow-bys he's allowing is single-handedly causing them to lose the games. It's not the 10 other things that are a problem.
Is that the discourse on Twitter you're seeing
I was
primarily?
gonna say,
my
what's
God.
the yeah?
Oh my God, dude. So when I covered game 2, I didn't realize how much this was the discourse. But then since then I've been on Twitter and people are talking about Luka getting blown by a lot constantly. And don't get me wrong, Luka is 100% getting blown by too much, to a point that it is a problem for the Dallas Mavericks. However, defense has not been the first, second, or third biggest issue for Dallas. And it's all about the offense as far as I'm concerned, because Boston is averaging less points per game against Dallas than they did in any other series. And it's by a decent margin. This is the best we have seen Boston be defended, even with this problem. However, people are focusing so much because when you're a superstar, you inherently get more scrutiny. And I saw someone on Twitter even suggest, this is how you know Luka is one of those dudes. Because if you're not one of those dudes, people are not on your ass like this. But they were. And it's if I were to list the problems with the Dallas Mavericks that have caused them to lose the first 2 games, that doesn't make my top 5. And after that, if we're looking at who's doing fucking anything on that end, Luka is doing everything on that end. So if you have that happening, he's also injured, and I'm tired of people saying he's faking that, because you can literally see in his movement that he is injured, especially as the game goes along. I can, at least. You can tell when these guys are a little bit more hobbled.
Are people saying that he's faking being hurt? Is that part of the conversation?
Oh yeah, of course it is. I mean, I saw a post again that was it was before the finals, that was over under on which game Luka starts pretending that he's hurt as an excuse. It's grow the fuck up. That's so stupid. And it's why do people think that Luka Doncic gives a fuck what Tatum Dick Rider 69 on Twitter thinks about him and his legacy? The dude's gonna go out shooting and try his best regardless. He's not lying about being injured. But if he's injured and he's carrying and he's doing everything on offense, he's been bad in the fourth quarters of these games, because he's had to do so much that he is dead tired by the time you get into the fourth quarter. He's just got no steam left, because he is the only reason that he's even playing in the fourth quarter and it's not a blowout is because he was carrying on offense. But now he can't do that anymore. Luckily, semi-luckily, in game 2, in the fourth quarter, I think the first time Dallas looked like Dallas, besides for Luka. So, if you look at the scoring in that quarter, I think they scored 20-something points, and Luka had 3 of them and shot 1 for 6. Otherwise, they hung in there with Boston. They even went on a good run with Luka off of the floor, which was the one time through the first 7 quarters they did not look like this. So I'm kind of losing what the point was. Basically, I understand why he's getting blown by a lot. He can't carry on offense while hurt, while playing crazy minutes, and then also play great defense. Was there a couple of plays in there that he could have done better? Absolutely. But in the list of priorities, and not really the reason I'm feeling this way more so than I would in the past, I've briefly talked about this on the show, but I have been getting more and more into X's and O's over time and kind of seeing the game a little bit differently than I used to. And I was more prone to just by default blaming the superstar, which I think a lot of people have that tendency. But straight up, I don't think there's much more Luka could be doing than he has been. So why is he getting the brunt of the blame? Whereas if I'm looking at people to blame, it's Kyrie Irving, then it's Derek Jones, then it's PJ Washington, then it's probably Jason Kidd for putting Maxi Kleber in the game late because he was desperate for threes, but then ended up giving up a bunch of paint points.
And the guy doesn't even want to shoot anyways. There's gotta be a new tier. Like, is Maxi Kleber in the Royce O'Neal tier? And you're gonna say, well, no, Nick, it's because of his shoulder. It's because he.
I think Royce is a much better shooter than Maxi Kleber personally.
But I'm saying in terms of shit that I talk about, I was like, dog, Royce O'Neal does not want to play for these Phoenix Suns. I'm like watching Maxi Kleber out there. Yeah, he's hurt. I get it. He's hurt. His shoulder's fucked up. I'm like, dog, I don't think he wants to play the game.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Chet is like that from 3 as well. Where it's like, dude, do you even like shooting the ball?
I got a question for Jacob and Rudy. You'll get to participate in this too. We'll group think. This is going somewhere. There will be a payoff at the end. Okay, I want to rank the 6 best players in these NBA finals. 1 being the best, 6 being the 6th best guy in the finals. So let's talk about it, fellas. Who are we putting at number 1? Luka's probably number 1.
Yeah, Luka. Then probably like are we saying limited to the context of their performance in the finals or players in the finals in general? Their ability,
best players in the finals in general.
Okay,
first 2 games haven't even happened. Who are the
Luka
6
Tatum?
best
Lock
players?
it in, right? That's got to be 1 and 2. If I wasn't affected by my bias of like the recency of Jaylen Brown going the fuck off, I might not say Jaylen Brown, but because I am affected by that bias, I want to say Jaylen Brown. Drew Holiday also probably gets a vote, as like being one of these upper echelon within the top 6. Where would you put Jacob? Because before these playoffs, especially these finals, the whole podcast was anti-Jaylen Brown a little bit.
Well, let me say about JB. Yeah, I don't think
Nick abstains.
I was a big KP is the 2nd best player on the Celtics guy. And honestly, when Porzingis is healthy, I still feel that way. And it's not even necessarily because of, how talented they are individually. Like, do you want to do the who's more talented versus who's more impactful? What the fuck ever. But like a shot blocking 7-footer who stretches the floor to that degree and is like unstoppable in the post, I think that is inherently more helpful than a player who does what Jason Tatum does, just worse. So from that point of view, from a pure versatility standpoint, I still feel like Porzingis ends up mattering more often. But that said, the biggest issue with Jaylen Brown was his ball handling, his passing, and his off-ball defense. He's gotten way better at all of those things. And I think the problem with Jaylen as a ball handler in the past wasn't that he was necessarily incapable of doing basic dribble moves. It's because he was constantly trying to do too much. I think Noah in our group chat this morning was like, Jaylen Brown finally learned he didn't have to be 2001 Allen Iverson to get to the rim. Like he's doing a simple 2-3 dribbles, no question about it. Simple shit, but it's effective. Passing wise, I think he's averaging the most assists he ever has, which isn't as big of a deal as it is just making the right decisions. He's making the right reads way more often. He's not taking a second to make the right pass and then nobody's open anymore because you waited too long. He's making the right read at the right time. He's dribbling well, and his off-ball defense has been great. He's been locked the fuck in. Like obviously we know he can shut down people one-on-one, but like he had a tendency to kind of fall asleep when he's not directly engaged with the ball handler. But all of his weaknesses that were the reason I was kind of low on Jaylen, while he hasn't become great at those things necessarily, they're not really weaknesses anymore. So from that point of view, so I must have lost it. Were we ranking these guys based on the finals or in general? I forgot.
In general.
Gotcha.
The first 2 games haven't happened
I
yet.
left Kyrie off of my list of like eligible guys for number 3. That's sort of just my personal bias. But I think it's pretty easily between Kyrie, Jaylen.
I mean, if we're going purely beforehand, I would probably go Luka, Tatum, and I think for me, it's actually weirdly hard to pick between Kyrie and Porzingis, again, just because I think it's the matter of the impact of that type of player. But in general, Kyrie's a better player than Porzingis. So I would go Kyrie number 3, Porzingis number 4, Jalen 5. And then after that, probably Drew Holiday or Derek White.
Yeah, it just depends on the night, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Celtics.
guys? Are you gonna lock it in?
That's how I'm
Top
feeling.
six?
I
I'll
don't know
lock it
about
in.
y'all.
I'll lock it
So
in.
who was number
Yeah.
6?
Drew. Let's say Drew, veteran.
So
I think he's the only player in the series with the ring right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if Drew Holiday, the 6th best player in this series, wins the Finals MVP, Jacob, you have to give someone league pass for a year.
Why
Someone
did
in the
this
chat.
become my responsibility? What the fuck?
It's
You're
a
gonna
fun
put that on
giveaway.
me?
Yeah, you know.
The
Drew's
6th
not-
best player.
Drew's not going to win Finals MVP. So I
If
guess
the series ended
I'll
today,
do it.
he'd win Finals MVP.
So
But
you'll
it
do
won't.
it.
But it's not going to.
Well, hold on. So if the 6th best player in this series, Drew Holiday, wins the NBA Finals MVP, you, Jacob, aka Rusty Buckets, will give someone league pass for 1 season.
Sure.
We gotta
Lock it
pump
in.
this. We gotta lock it in. But you gotta be subscribed. You gotta comment. I'm
yeah,
telling you guys.
Quick side note. I do want to point out a couple people in the chat were like, PJ Washington's been good. I was specifically referring to the fact that he's not hitting his threes. I think he's 1 for 8. So that's why I listed him lower in the order. He's done everything good inside the arc.
Someone in the chat said Jason Kidd wasn't lying about JB. That was one of my
Yes, he
favorite little
was.
folds.
Yes, he was. He
For-
absolutely was.
For those who don't know, following game 1, Jaylen Brown had an incredible performance, frankly. And Jason Tatum, notably, didn't shoot the ball particularly well. And so in his post-game presser, he said, well, Jaylen Brown's their best player. In response to a question about Jaylen Brown, he said, oh, he's their best player. And like the sort of psychological warfare is like very like NBA veteran player move, someone who's been here before. But everyone on Boston's team, like in their press conferences that follow, all said like, no, we know what he's doing. It's not going to affect us, and yada, yada, yada. What's your take?
Okay. I don't think an off-ball wing can be the best player on this really ever, especially given the teammates that he has. An off-ball wing, someone who is not having the defensive impact of a big and not having the ball handling creation impact of an ISO scorer / playmaker. I think Tatum being the ISO scorer / playmaker inherently makes him better than Jaylen Brown. And I won't say Porzingis is inherently better because he does big man defense, but at the bare minimum, you know, Jason Tatum is better. I'm so sure of that. Now, through these first 2 games, no. But also, as much as Jason Kidd is saying this shit about Jaylen Brown being the better player, the way the defense is acting sure doesn't seem to think that, because they're loading up on Jason more than they are Jaylen. Part of that is that Jason is dribbling the ball more, so that makes it easier to just hound that person. You know, you can't double team off ball, at least not for long. But that's the thing. Like, the defense is not treating Jaylen like he's the best player. So I fully believe Jason Kidd was full of shit when he said that. But like, think of any off ball, mostly off ball forward. Obviously, Jaylen Brown does some on ball stuff, but think of those players. How many of those have been a championship won? I can't think of any in recent history. For sure, I can't.
Yeah, beats me. Asking the wrong guy.
Klay Thompson would be that option for the Warriors.
Give Klay Thompson his own team. Does he carry them to a ring?
Nope. No, because he can't fucking dribble, pass, or play big man defense, or score like a big man. I should also give you that. Like, I think, you know, like Anthony Davis could be the best player on a title team because he has that approach, but specifically an off-ball wing. That guy's just never been it. Maybe why Reggie Miller never won a ring.
Andre Iguodala? I don't know.
Was he the...
He won Finals MVP. He won Finals MVP.
He literally won MVP of the fucking finals. So I don't know.
Case in point.
Well,
I don't know. Kawhi Leonard, ever heard of the fucking guy? I don't know.
Well, 2014 is an anomaly of a title to begin with because it's not like a superstar Finals MVP.
You're saying Kawhi Leonard's a more legitimate example of that?
I'm confused.
Of
What
like
you're asking me.
being an off-ball wing that's the best player on your championship team.
Yeah,
Kawhi Leonard
that's
2014.
That's one that happened, but also the Spurs were more of a conglomerate than they were like, oh, here's this individual doing great things for us. I realize that sounds like I'm goalpost moving, but I'm saying 9 times out of 10 championship teams.
I think I'm a little confused because Kawhi Leonard also won a championship in 2019.
Right, but he was a very prominent ball handler. Obviously, he wasn't like primary all of the time, but like at least in the end of the game, Kawhi Leonard had the ball in his hands every time. Whereas you do not do that with Jalen, you do not do that with Clay. And speaking of Andre Iguodala, Andre had the ball a good bit too, because the big reason why the Warriors had these playmaking forwards is so that they can effectively have Steph play off ball, and that's exactly what Andre Iguodala was doing. But Steph is also still the primary initiator, still the best playmaker on the team. So he was better than Iggy and should have won that Finals MVP. So, yeah, I think that theory holds true. I just came up with it on the spot, so I don't have a bunch of evidence to back it up, but I think I'm right.
You have a hypothesis.
Do you think people in 10 years will still remember the amount of people, because it was a lot of people who were like in 2015, LeBron James should win Finals MVP. And like every year basically that they would lose, people would be like, but LeBron should win. Like, is he going to win it? And I remember the year that, man, people were fucking talking about LeBron potentially winning Finals MVP.
I was kind of in that camp a little bit.
I knew you would be.
Well, let me tell you, I actually didn't really love Steph until 2016. I wasn't a Steph hater, but I wasn't a Steph Glazer to the degree that I am now. So I wouldn't have made that argument a year later. But then I was like, I kind of get it, because Steph did have a worse series than you would have expected. But I also sure as shit wouldn't have given it to Andre Iguodala. I'll tell you that much.
For the record, LeBron James received the other 4 votes for Finals MVP in 2015. Iguodala got 7. LeBron got 4. So no one voted.
We didn't even mention that with Jerry West. He's the first Finals MVP ever, and he got it in a loss.
I think that was out of respect, though.
It was, because he averaged like 35.
No, us not mentioning it was out of respect.
He averaged like 35 and 10 for an entire final series and lost. Brutal. I'm going to quickly skim over these champions just to see if my theory is correct. Someone else take the ball.
Yeah. Well, Rudy, while we're riffing for a minute here, we got a comment here in the chat. I think it'd be worth highlighting. Can y'all talk about why it's hard to like the Celtics? They may be one of the most pretentious teams in American sports.
Do this easily.
I guess what my question is what makes them pretentious? Is it the 17 motherfucking championships? #ranks? Not to show my age, but
it could be that it's 17 and only one of them is in the last 40 years, but they still talk like they're that team.
They're kind of like Notre Dame in that way, and that they're also, the mascot is just Irish people.
I do want to point out the Lakers have 5 rings from Minneapolis in the 50s. So it's not an exclusively Celtics thing, but the Celtics have even more of that on their side.
Nothing more foundational than being an annoying team fan base,
but I think
lots and lots and lots of historical success.
let me say what I'm going to say with a little bit of nuance. I understand. I don't believe in viewing a group of people as like a monolith, like this is what this group of people is like. That leads to a lot of bad shit. That said, fuck people from Boston. I have never met a good person from Boston in my life. And where I lived in South Carolina, you know how every once in a while, or North Carolina rather, you know how every once in a while there's a state that like for some reason everyone's moving there? That was people from Boston were moving to North Carolina in droves.
Oh, so you got a bad sample.
The amount of Patriots fans who were on my street, even though we're in North fucking Carolina, is exhausting. And then the 2 times that I have been to Boston itself, I got some pushback on the infrastructure comment because apparently it's very walkable. I did do some walking around, but for the most part, I was in the hotel and then in the arena. So it's not a fair comparison, but
You said,
I will
look,
say
I'm wrong, but I'm still gonna say
but
it.
the vibes, dog shit. It was terrible weather. The city is not pretty, at least the part of it that I saw. And then while yes, the walkability of it is great, drive on a road in that city and you'll want to blow your brains out. It's the worst. I wasn't driving. I was just in an Uber and I hated it. So I can't even imagine being behind the wheel. I would blow a gasket. But straight up, I'm not saying there aren't good people from Boston. There absolutely are. People are not a monolith. That said, I have only had negative experiences. So, and I think that's a lot of people's experience. I think they feel the same way about Philadelphia fans because, like, culturally, they embrace like belligerence. It's like if you call them an asshole, they're like, yeah, I'm an asshole. My dad was an asshole. It's in our whole family
Commit
lineage.
to
That's
the
how we
accent,
are.
Jacob. Either do the
I-
accent
honestly,
or don't do it.
I don't have a good Boston accent. It's only good when I go, it's my boy's wicked smart from Goodwill Hunting. But other than that, can't do a Boston accent. But yeah, fuck. If you are from Boston, you're watching this, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but I am saying the odds are much higher than the average person.
You got a lot to overcome.
I think people
Bostonians.
feel the same way
Apparently.
about Philadelphia fans that they do Boston fans. It's like, oh my God,
You
guys
said that.
are so.
Yeah,
I know.
It's each other's fault.
I
They
was
hate each other,
reiterating it. You're like they are so belligerent in my experience. The
You just
rudest
don't get
interactions.
the culture of aggressive fandom.
I don't get treating someone like a piece of shit because they root for another team or disagree with you.
Because it's sports, and you're allowed to because it's sports.
No.
It's the safe space for being an asshole.
think there
everywhere
is-
else
no.
is polite society.
No.
But you step inside a stadium and you see the other guy wearing the wrong color, and you say, "I hate you."
Rudy,
You're
you
like,
are
you're
correct.
gay.
Rudy, you are correct, but there is a line. And Boston Celtics fans are perpetual line steppers.
I think habitual is the word.
Habitual, I
you're
think
right.
was the
I keep saying phrases a little bit wrong.
It's the best way to say a phrase. That's like my signature move. I love
Oh
all the
my
ding dong
God.
day.
Yeah. Oh my God. Every
That's-
time you say that, it pisses me off. Instead of the live long day, this dude always says all the ding dong day. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about, Rudy?
Yeah. Well, speaking of ding dong, I think it's my turn to call it ISO on myself. Frankly, it's just about that time because I do have some basketball that I want to kind of reel this conversation back into.
Real
You
quick,
can finish
cut
your
you
point.
off.
You
Yeah,
can finish
someone
your
in the
point.
comments said that I don't know. I'm actually just curious what you think of this because I don't know enough about football. Someone said that Boston fans are the Cowboy fans of the NBA. I don't know how accurate of a comparison that is.
No.
No.
Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah.
All right. glad we got that settled.
It's like I reckon both fan bases have like championships from the past that they still hang on to a little too hard today. But beside that, I don't really see the analogy. I mean, maybe they're also over discussed in the media. So maybe in those two exact, very specific ways.
Every fan base does have terrible fans, but not every fan base has this high of a percentage of terrible fans.
The
reacting to another
Celtics to
comment.
Cowboys fan thing, it's if you tried to get to A to Z on it, you could.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
You can get there, but you're getting there in like a 2002 Honda Civic.
Yeah.
So-
what do you got for us, Rudy?
I did my homework. Speaking of not doing your homework, someone in the chat said very early on, I did my homework this time. So if it sounds like I'm reading off a script, it's because I partially am. But Nick, I want to direct this at you a little bit more than towards Jacob because you and I both share the same passion for broadcasting and like a similar level in our passion for sports.
I like it.
Right?
I'm just not passionate about it.
Right. So I think that Mike Breen single-handedly opened the door for the Celtics to blow this. I think that all indications of this series tend to show that Celtics are the better team. They're going to dominate them, even if it takes like 6 games or whatever, But what Mike Breen did to close out the game in game 2, I think has the potential to domino effect, butterfly effect, however you want to describe it, into Boston losing. Because I don't know if y'all noticed this, but one of the last things Mike Breen said was recapping the most important play of the game, the Derek White chase down where Jaylen Brown got a piece of it too. He said, but this is verbatim, but this, not only was it a great block, but there should have been a foul call.
Should have been a fucking foul because it was a foul. Sorry that Mike Breen was right about that, by the way. Go ahead.
He
Rudy.
was.
No, go ahead.
He was.
Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy, go ahead.
Truth of the matter aside, I think he's wrong to highlight this way. I think as the broadcast partner of the NBA, it is your job to do the exact opposite of this. Like, I respect Mike Breen for being a goat in his craft and for like having such like a well oriented grip on like what he's doing. You know, he's a very respectable guy, and his favoritism toward the truth of the matter is commendable, but he's still fucked up. Like, by drawing attention to this, saying that Jaylen Brown shoved him in the back on the most important play of the game, the difference between it being a 5-point game and like potentially a 4 or 3-point game versus Boston having the ball with a 5-point game, you know, the repercussions of that is huge in the game. And you're saying that it should have been different. That is not something that the casual fan should be walking away from this game feeling and thinking about is, oh, this game was fraudulent, bad game, whoopsie daisies. That is just not okay. I don't think that's like good for Mike Breen to do in his exact job, you know? So, and I have some other ideas about like how it can domino, but Nick, go ahead. Just first thoughts, initial thoughts.
My first question, yes or no? Would it be different if JJ or Doris said it? Or would you feel the same?
I think I would feel differently, but my point wouldn't change. If that makes sense.
So you would still err on the side of the broadcast. It is not on the broadcast team to point out, hey, that probably should have been a foul. Okay, so brace for pushback.
I have a take as well when you're done.
So when you're watching the Super Bowl and you see a team get horseshitted on a pass interference call, on a holding call that wasn't there, Jim Nantz is going to point it out 10 times out of 10. Aikman's going to say something about it. You know what I mean? Romo's going to say something about it. Brady this upcoming year, he's going to say something about it. It's part of it. You know, I don't know. So no matter who it, because that's the thing is I think I would kind of agree a little bit just in the spirit. If you said not from the play-by-play guy, but from the color commentator, that's their job is to analyze shit. And when it's a dog shit penalty, hey, it's okay to go. But from the play-by-play guy, there's like, it's a position that feels more reserved for, like it's just different etiquette than the color commentator.
Yeah, that's basically that's a core component of what I'm saying for sure. And to be clear, I don't mind them pointing out the refs fucking up in general, but the way that some of the last things that we heard Mike Breen say on the broadcast before they rolled into covering the game was, yeah, that should have been a foul on Jaylen Brown. Anyway, back to you in the studio. What? That's the closing thoughts of the game?
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Jacob.
I think the last impression you have is the one that will always stick with you. So the fact that it is the last thing is important, regardless of if you think he should say it or not. So that's the feeling that you are walking away from this game with, to an extent at least.
And it's like, okay, Mike Breen doesn't say anything about it. Do you want the cameras do you want the producer in the truck to not use the camera angles that show it? Because even if Mike Breen doesn't say it, everybody's still going to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then they'll be like, why didn't the broadcast point this out? What the fuck? Like, I think as like a viewer enjoying the broadcast, there's a line you can't cross where you want to make sure you're not being too biased, but I want to feel like the commentators are on the side of the viewer, you know, like they're like, we're trying to help you understand this. We're going to point out everything that we can. So I think by holding back information, that's pretty much inherently antithetical to being a commentator, at least in what I think you should do in that position.
Yeah, I think that's a thoughtful response. That is indeed good for the commentator to be on the side of the viewer to relay the truth, right? I just think the closing side of this, like as we both keep emphasizing, is extremely key. You know, Nick, you looked like you had something to say a moment ago.
No,
Did
I
cut you off?
think we've covered all the bases here.
Okay. So here's like how I see this unraveling. Like this is I don't want to say a prediction, but I just want to put this forth as a door that is now open because Mike Breen did this, right? So Luka Doncic is on painkillers now. Right? Kristaps Porzingis is hurt. Drew Holiday's playing out of his mind, hitting every open shot and whatnot. If the Mavericks' home court advantage over these next 2 games swings a little bit more in their favor than it otherwise could have, because the refs are a little bit more hesitant to blow the whistle in Boston's favor because of basically the closing statement of last game being, yeah, this game was reffed a little unfairly in the most key moment of it. All it takes is a few more things to swing in the Mavericks' favor for them to catch momentum and steal this series. Like, if Dallas wins tonight, which I honestly think they will, and I think even if the free throw discrepancy is like pretty negligible, I think the timing of those free throws and the non-calls that are a lot harder to measure are going to do a lot more to define this game tonight than what we would normally see. Again, because of this broadcast thing. And from there, let's say Kyrie doesn't have the whole crowd chanting that he sucks, for 2 games, catches a little bit of heat, and then going into game 6, let's say the series tied, or even if they're down 3-1, he might go off in Boston, actually win the first game in the Garden since he left. How awesome would that be? Luka's healing up again, taking the painkillers. Kristaps Porzingis probably not going to be as effective now that he has a bigger injury. And Jason Kidd is a more experienced NBA champion. He's been in this situation before. He's already trying to play the mind games and thing. And Joe Mazzulla, very interesting in the press conference. Kind of says a bunch of nonsense, but very interesting. But the experience that Jason Kidd has, I never thought I'd be advocating for Jason Kidd as like a good head coach, but I think he is probably the more adequate coach in this matchup here.
I don't think that at all. I think Joe Mazzulla is better than Jason Kidd personally.
I think situationally, since the trade deadline, I've been really impressed with Jason Kidd, especially through the playoffs. Very good at making adjustments and all that.
I'm very impressed with Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, they have a whole season of dominance.
Yeah.
God, I'm just trying to think of what else I said. Oh yeah, another thing. If they're gonna highlight this fuck up, right? This Jaylen Brown shove in the back on PJ Washington and on this double block. Why not also highlight how Derek White traveled like 80 feet to actually block the shot? Why not highlight how Derek White set the screen on basically 2 guys by subtly getting away with tripping Maxi Kleber to give Jaylen Brown the open layup to make it a 7-point game with less than a minute left following this foul? Like, Derek White had a much larger impact in a positive way, even with questionable discretionary rule differences and things, and it didn't get any attention called to it. So I just think the recipe is there for Dallas to win in a way that makes Mike Breen kind of responsible for it. I yield my time.
If he is, even if that's true, if Mike Breen is responsible for the Celtics losing, even more my goat. I got no complaints.
I guess my thing would be, okay, so Boston's going to fall victim to this media cloud hanging over their locker room. Are we sure?
Did you not make the point about how the refs are going to officiate? Because that's the big one.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's just going to be more officiating discrepancy in favor of Dallas.
We got to make up for that no call type shit.
At the very least tonight. Because
not to mention the NBA already wants to extend the series.
Right. Going up 3-0 is horrible optics for the finals. It's definitely going to tank some viewership. So they're doubly incentivized to give Dallas this one in some capacity. Not to say it wouldn't be earned. These teams are made it to the finals for a reason, right? But I think with Luka Doncic feeling a little bit better, Celtics being a little bit more vulnerable and having a few more things rolling in the favor of Dallas right now, that even though they're down 0-2, you could make an argument that they have momentum in this series, which is crazy and obviously not true, but you can make the argument, and that's almost never true of any team that's down 0-2. I'm not making the argument, but I'm saying it's possible.
So is Scott Foster calling this game?
Let's find out. Let's check the NBA.
We should
PR
find that
Twitter.
And then the second thing, I guess my question is, it sounds like no matter what Dallas does, it's almost like God forbid they win, because everybody's going to be like fake win, not a real win, like hacked win.
I feel like people are more likely to scrutinize game 2 because it was like framed that way on the broadcast rather than like the nerdy thing that like people deep in the NBA culture would be like what we're doing, where we're like, oh yeah, this is gonna get extended because the NBA needs money, yada yada, you know. So maybe people will give him that scrutiny for the win tonight, but I feel like that's more of something that like people like us would do than people like the two people that texted me.
Connection, TBH.
I had a couple people that texted me following the final, and so we're not like balls deep basketball fans like we are. They're fellow casuals, you know. I have insider info on the casual fan perspective. Believe it or not, that's what makes me the pro casual. It's not just my opinion; it's that of my casual friends. That these finals kind of suck. That they're not good. That the entertainment value isn't there like it used to be. Ball don't stop. Make a
fucking take about that.
Ball don't stop did his usual thing, making a clickbait tweet saying that the style of play makes it less intense now. But I think it's much less about that and much more about how it's just been a weird feeling. And part of that comes down to the broadcast, because one of those two friends that texted me was like, man, fuck this shit. It is so rigged. I can't stand how much influence the refs have. I hate this so much. This is not real hoops. Like, it was that sort of attitude.
Now I have two takes now.
Go off, please. The floor is yours.
First of all, NBA fans bitch about officiating too much. I am not saying it is not a problem and a thing to complain about with regularity. And I'm not saying if I was a Mavericks fan, I wouldn't be pissed about that foul call not happening, because I absolutely would. However, again, if I'm listing reasons why the Mavericks lost these fucking games, officiating does not make the top 5. On top of the fact, if you can pull up the game 2 stats, they got the same amount of free throws. They just missed like 7 more of them than Boston did, which, guess what? Would have swung the game. But instead, we're talking about the one call. I just think it's too narrowly minded. We're acting like the last minute of the game is the game, and it's not. The 47 minutes that happened before that determine if you could even be in the position where a ref determines it from there. So that part of it I don't agree with. And then in terms of the finals not being that entertaining, I do think some people throw this around a little too loosely, but I do think it's applicable here. Some of y'all just don't like basketball like that for real. And the fact that there's no super strong narrative, the fact that this isn't really a rivalry, the fact that everyone's superstar pilled, and because Jason Tatum isn't playing great, the winning team isn't having that, holy shit, look at that fucking guy. I think because NBA fans are so focused on individuals more now than they were in the past, they don't appreciate a good team like they used to. And Boston is a very, very good team who have a team-oriented approach, who have a play style and a system, and they stick to it hard and they execute it well. But it's not the same thing as watching Luka hit a bunch of tough fadeaways. Like, I think for most people, that's been the only fun part of this whole equation, is that, yeah, Luka's cooking. That's sick. But other than that, especially because he stopped playing good in the fourth, like, they just don't appreciate a swing pass or a drive and kick to one of 5 40% three-point shooters. It's just not a type of basketball that I think you can enjoy as much casually. I have personally fucking loved these games, especially the second one, just because I think it's mostly because the way I'm watching the game has been changing. But regardless, I just think it's because there's not a strong narrative, and a lot of people need that narrative to show up.
You say you want to see game 2 stats. Here they are on screen for chat and everyone else watching at home. If you're listening on Spotify, come to the Also
free throw attempts. How many attempts did each team get?
How far do I have to scroll for that?
You have to go to the regular box score for that one, buddy.
Man.
But if you'll see, I think that said 67% from the line. Yeah, just go to box. Yeah, it's right there. Which 24 free throws, 24 free throws. 24. Yeah, and then Celtics, they shot 4 more. Boston hit them, though. I realize we're specifically focusing on the, call in the thumbnail, but like the suggestion that the refs are just like making Boston win the series. No, man. Boston is just a way better team, and Dallas has executed horribly on offense. That's what's happening. So this is not that important, essentially.
I feel like you were kind of getting into your bag about the importance of depth there for a minute. Do you want the ISO cam on depth?
Yeah, that was my other topic. Yeah, I think the 3 to 4, because sometimes that third guy can be a star. Basically, anybody who's not a bona fide all-star caliber guy, that player on to like your 6th or 7th man, those players are so much more pivotal in winning a title than they have been maybe ever, but especially over the last 20 years or so. There is not an example. Like, can we just go ahead and pull up what I did? So we're doing a video, spoiler alert, about championship teams, what it takes to win a championship, that's coming out after the finals. And when you look at the role players of the 90s and 2000s for title teams, especially dynasty teams, which we specifically pulled from just because of the point that I was making. Yeah, there it is right there. If you can put that up there, buddy.
I'm working on
it. Yeah. So I just decided to make lineups of, this is the 2099 Spurs, 2000s and 99 Spurs, and the 90s Bulls. Their 4th, 5th, and 6th best player. I wrote down all of those names, and I was like, okay, let me put this in the best possible lineup. This team number 1 fucking washes team number 2. It's not a contest. And I think this is because people keep talking about how talent is becoming better and better in the NBA, right? But I don't think the top 5 players in the NBA, I made this point in the video, so forgive me for hearing it again a second time, Nick. But they're not that much better now than they were 20 years ago, the top 5 players in the league. But number 20 through number 100 is so much better. These guys are like way better shot creators than that type of guy used to be. If you look through these players here, really the only ones that you could describe as a shot creator are like Manu and BJ. Also, these are all the versions of these players when they won a championship. Mario Elie was an all-star, but he wasn't when they won a championship. Tony Kukoc a little bit. But other than that, no shot creation. Meanwhile, Drew Holiday, Derek White, Michael Porter's not creating off like with his handle, but like he can take shots that no one else can take because he's Michael Porter Jr. Draymond Green's a great playmaker, even if he's not scoring for himself. Marc Gasol's a great playmaker. Fred VanVleet was averaging 15 points per game for the latter half of the playoffs. Jordan Poole averaged 17 points per game for the entirety of the 2022 playoff run. Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis, those are good players too. Alex Caruso. Like, I'm just listing the whole roster because look at this shit.
Skipping over Jordan Poole, by the way, a glaring omission.
I didn't. I just said Jordan Poole.
Did you say I didn't hear it?
I think he slipped it in there.
Jordan averaged 17 in their playoff run.
50, 40, 90.
Yeah, on basic 0.9% from 3 away from 50, 40, 90. So, huh?
Keep going.
Doubt it?
I said keep going.
It's just a fact.
I said keep going. You're good.
Okay,
keep going.
Yeah. So basically what I'm getting at is having that guy doesn't matter as much as it used to by comparison to having a couple of guys. And through these first 2 games, I don't think that point could be illustrated any better because while Derek Jones and PJ have been cool, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, they've been solid role players, or I guess non-all-stars. Boston has the S tier, upper echelon, non-all-star caliber players in Drew, White, Porzingis, and Al Horford.
Yeah, championship's going to be one off the bench, apparently.
Not so much off of the bench. I don't think it really matters as much who your 8th, 9th dude is, But the guys who are going to play 25 minutes per game, you can't afford a bad player playing 25 minutes per game anymore. I don't care how good your top guys are. You can't get away with it. And Boston, Jason Tatum has sucked at scoring the ball, and they have won because of these guys. Meanwhile, Luka has kicked ass at this superstar shit. He's averaging 30 and like 5 because he had 1 assist in the first game. But he had like a triple-double in game 2. But Derek Jones didn't show up. You know, Kyrie didn't show up. Obviously, Kyrie's not one of those guys, but you know, that's a factor as well. Just across the board, the role players are winning this series. The role players are why Boston is up right now, not the superstars on either side of the equation.
What do you guys think about Gajita's question from earlier in the chat as we kind of move into the post 1 hour mark Q&A?
A lot.
He says, how much trouble are the Celtics in if Porzingis doesn't come back at all? Are they like lose the next 4 games fucked?
Yeah, I don't really know what the timetable is on a fucking torn rectum, but
it was something a little bit harder to pronounce than that.
Dude, what the fuck was it? I need to find that shit. Was it Woj or Shams who tweeted
it was Shams.
that?
It was
Shams. Like everyone was clowning on it for a good 4 hours on Twitter because it
suffered a torn medial retinaculum, which allowed for dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon. Like, what the fuck is that, dude? Just say he's hurt at that point. There's a doctor in the comments who translated it and said essentially there is a part of his ankle that popped out of place and tore some tissue along the way.
And thank God Elon built in Dr. Translate on Twitter. Thank God.
Right.
I think it's just the guy trying to get engagement, but yeah.
Does he have a check mark?
Yes, he does.
I love the idea that somebody impersonates like a chief medical personnel.
Probably,
to get to engagement.
We got the Surgeon General on the reply.
That definitely happens. There's no shot that doesn't happen.
That was the first thing that happened when you can start paying for check marks. It was an impersonation fiasco. We don't have to rehash that history. It was like the worst 2 months on Twitter ever.
You know,
a horrible place.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the finals and I'm thinking about world leaders and I'm like, do you think Joe knows what's going on in the finals? And then I'm like, okay, so what world leaders would know what's going on in the finals? And then I was like, do you think like Kim Jong-un is gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, he's gonna check his phone and be like, oh shit, like
basketball,
dog. That's why I'm bringing him up.
My bad.
Do you think he's gonna be like? Do you think he's gonna wake up and be like, oh shit, like Dallas won, like fuck yeah, like my 3-leg parlay just cashed, like fuck yeah.
You think they got FanDuel?
You know that
the Democratic Republic,
the Twitter format of like the 2 things with the handshaking. That's me and Kim Jong-un both hating the Celtics.
The worst guy that you could possibly be shaking hands with, I think.
Yeah. I mean, do we think that Netanyahu knows? Do we think
Richie
that
Miller asked us if Luka gets a chip, is he the best foreign player? I reckon to ever win a chip is like the rest of that, or just like the best foreign player in the league right now. Is he better than Jokic? I think is ultimately the question here.
I have another goddamn take. They just keep popping up on this one. I don't know what it is.
Thank God we have a podcast.
The reason Jokic is better than Luka is because he is not dribbling the ball all the time. Because he can attack quickly in the post, doesn't take the ball up the floor, that inherently kind of exhausts you a little bit. You know, dribbling all that. Chris Paul talked about that when he went to the Rockets. He's like, yeah, I'm tired of being tired because I have the ball all the time. Because Jokic has much more of an off-ball element to his game, I think he's a better player. And I've said before that Jokic and Luka are like the point guard and center version of the same guy. Because Jokic is a center and he has the off-ball centerness of it all, ends up being a better player to me, and I don't think that's going to change unless Luka averages 45 for the rest of the playoffs, the rest of the finals.
Nick,
do we agree on that? I guess
I gotta be honest. I've been really trying to think of the nicest way that I can say this. I am so disinterested in doing the whole like where does Luka rank in the pantheon of shit if they win. I'm just so not interested in it because it's like the motherfucker hasn't done it yet, and we just want to see him do it once. But our immediate instinct is going to be to rank him, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm just not interested in it. And so Richie, with all due respect, I don't know.
Sorry to keep referencing Twitter posts, but there was someone that was like, "Is Jason Tatum the best player in the world if they win this series?" And I'm like, "Can you just get the fuck out of here? Like, are we for real? Is every time a champion happens, the best player is inherently the best player in the league? It can't be a matter of matchups or injuries or something like that. Every time we have a new guy." I already thought Jokic was the best player in the league, and then he won a title. I didn't change my opinion because he won a title. That's the one I arrived at to begin with. There's so much more than just a fucking final series. I'm sorry. And especially if Tatum keeps playing like this. No, absolutely not. Even if we agree he's doing everything else well, can't be averaging 17 on 35 and be the best player in the league. I don't give a fuck.
Lazar in the chat says Iguodala is the best player
from
2015.
Oh, well, you were making the joke. I took that
no
for half a second. I took that sincerely, and I did not wait to respond to it.
So, do you even think?
I don't.
For the record, the referee assignments tonight are Mark Davis, James Capers, Kevin Scott, and then the alternate is Ben Taylor. So shout out to Thinking Basketball. I guess I had no idea he was a referee. Makes sense though. If we don't get any more questions after this one, this might be what closes out our show. Artos asks us, Sam Hauser Finals MVP for holding Luka to 30 points per game? ?
Oh man, I'm
Very
sure Boston would
Iguodala-esque.
love that.
Maybe, but everybody, don't forget. If Drew Holiday wins Finals MVP, Jacob, a.k.a. Rusty Buckets, will be giving away a 1-year membership to NBA League Pass.
Is this going to become a recurring thing? Are you going to keep trying to get me to give shit away to people?
It's
without warning me.
I mean, well, maybe I'll warn you next time, but I will be trying to do it again in the future because it's just smart. But yeah, Drew Holiday, everybody, place your futures.
$200. That's fine. I can take that hit.
Before we go, let's get our predictions, fellas. With Boston up 2-0, who's winning the series? If we had to pick one right now, I'm going Dallas in 6. They're gonna go 4-0.
Wow.
And it's all Mike Breen's fault. Kyrie Irving is going to average 27 on 50, 40, 90 from here on out.
I will say this. While I have absolutely done like the presuming Boston will win thing, I also feel like so many people are like, the Celtics have won the 2024 championship. It is over because, 90% of 2-0 comebacks or 2-0 leads don't lead to a comeback, right?
Yeah, Dallas would be the 6th team in final history to overcome a 2-0 deficit.
Right. But first things, playoffs in general, 12 of the last 34 of those that have happened in NBA history happened in the last 10 years. And so I think shooting variance, 3-point volume has increased the volatility of game-by-game shit. But beyond that, what was beyond that? Nick. I forgot. I'm so sorry. It happens. Am I not allowed to be a human, Nick?
Everyone makes mistakes.
Okay. He's just not going to say anything.